For more chat about geek entertainment, answers to your questions, and news from the wider world of Christian geekery, get the Christian Geek Central podcast today on iTunes and other podcast services. For the purposes of this content, best shall be defined as most preferred by Peter Franson when compared to a limited sample of alternatives. Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions. Okay, I'm ready now to give you my picks for the quote-unquote best games of 2021 in E3. Really dominated by indies this year. Now, it's interesting, Sony did not appear during kind of like the stretch of time that E3 really was happening. I think it's very possible that they have some kind of event in the works that will maybe retroactively change one or two things that are on this list. I have no idea. I'm going to be out of town also, I should say, all of next week. And so if Sony drops some big news then and you don't get me reacting to it right away, that's why. You can just imagine me screaming in frustration as I'm not able to spit my thoughts out there. Okay, so this year really dominated by indie games for me, as I suspected in some ways might be the case, because my guess is that big publishers, especially AAA studios, were much more affected by the pandemic in terms of how they operate than smaller studios, maybe made up of just a few people that perhaps are already working from home. So I was kind of wondering if we would have sparser showings and maybe if some indies would kind of be bubbling to the surface that wouldn't normally get as much airtime. Now, I think there are plenty of big games that could be on someone's list like this, but in terms of games that I really get excited about, it was a lot more indies that were kind of grabbing my attention this year. So I thought about putting this in some kind of like list of least excited to most excited or whatever, but I ended up not doing that. Roughly they are in order of increasing interest on this list. I've got 10 games that I've picked out here, and I can't remember what my mentality has been in past years when I make this list, but I kind of decided this year these aren't games that I'm necessarily assuming I'm going to like. But based on what I see here, it's kind of like there's enough information that makes me think that I will like at least many elements of it, or a number of elements of it, and I just really am leaning forward in anticipation of learning more. So it's really more like my interest. These games have my interest in order to learn more. It's very much possible that one or even all of these games could, when they release, end up being something like, oh no, I guess I am not wanting to play this at all, you know. So, but right now, these are the games that most have my attention, and if I was given the option to sit down and you know, and play a game for free to try it out some more, these are the games that would be on that list from E3 this year. Okay. So first up is Elex 2. This is just listed as coming soon. I assume it's going to be coming to PC and consoles. The first game did. And the first game I really wanted to like. I wanted to like because the world was so interesting to me. It was almost like this mashup of sci-fi and sword and sorcery. And I'm just really into that kind of thing. But the gameplay was really ultimately disappointing to me. Let me read the description that they give for Elex 2. Elex 2, they say, is the sequel to Elex, the vintage open-world role-playing experience from the award-winning creators of the Gothic and Risen series, Piranha Bytes. Elex 2 returns to the post-apocalyptic science fantasy world of Magellan with massive environments that can be explored with unrivaled freedom via jetpack. You will be able to move through the epic story any way you want. It's interesting. I wonder exactly what they mean by that. They go on to say, this game allows you to explore the planet of Magellan with unprecedented freedom. I like the sound of that. Depends on what they mean by freedom. Using your trusted jetpack to traverse the map and even fly. Interact with a lived-in world full of unique NPCs who will remember what you've done and react accordingly, will join or leave your group depending on how you behave, are able to be killed, which will have an effect on the story. And let's see. Oh, and they also add, engage in fluid, close, and ranged combat with a massively improved control system. That almost sounds like an apology for the how combat combat felt in the first game. They go on saying, experience a story where your actions have consequences, immersing you in a world of moral decisions. And I felt like that was, all those kind of pieces were in place in the first game. A lived-in world, a world that was very interactive in terms of the choices you made and how it affects the NPCs that you're interacting with and how the story unfolds. And so I think choice was something that they succeeded in really implementing in the first game, but combat and animations just felt really wooden. Piranha Bytes, they referenced the Gothic and Risen. Those games are not known for being user-friendly or really easy at all, or having difficulty settings that are really going to help you a ton. They're known for their challenge, and it seems like they're content as a studio to make games that are not necessarily going to be accessible and are going to be challenging. However, there is no reference to difficulty as kind of a selling point in this description here. So that gives me reason to think that maybe, they're thinking about that a little bit more this time around. I only progressed in the first game ultimately because of a glitch cheat that I was able to use to give myself a bunch of coins. I just didn't have patience for the more deliberate, pseudo-Soulsy type of combat that they wanted me to have in the original game. Now, going back to it, I just last night uploaded it again, and I don't know if this was an update that I never noticed back in the day when I played it or not, but apparently you can turn off the need for stamina in doing combat, and that's a significant game changer. Ultimately, after a few minutes, I was like, yeah, the combat just feels still very stiff, and so it just kind of, there's also some quality of life issues in the navigating the world that just altogether sucked the joy out of playing that game for me. So I didn't finish it, but I love the look of the world. I love the setting. I would love to have all of that with enjoyable gameplay. So I'm hoping, we only see what looks like a CG trailer or maybe a pre-rendered in-engine trailer for Elex 2. We're not seeing much about what this game is going to actually play like, unless this trailer is meant to reflect how the game plays and how the animations look when you're playing it. That would be a huge upgrade if that were the case. But still, a lot remains to be seen about Elex 2 coming soon, which probably means, in my mind, the next 12 months. I don't know. We'll see. Next up, Bright Memory Infinite. This one is coming to Xbox, I think exclusively in the 2021 Xbox and I think PC. It's described as a lightning-fast fusion of FPS and action. Bright Memory Infinite is set in the sprawling, futuristic metropolis in the year 2036. A strange phenomenon for which scientists can find no explanation has occurred in the skies around the world. The Supernatural Science Research Organization, SRO, has sent agents out to various regions to investigate this phenomenon. It is soon discovered that these strange occurrences are connected to an archaic mystery, an as of yet unknown history of two worlds about to come to light. Really, none of that is what interests me about this. It's just the trailers we've seen, the gameplay trailers we've seen for this that I would recommend you check out if you haven't heard of Bright Memory Infinite. The detail and colors that I'm seeing in these gameplay trailers look fantastic. You're fighting in the middle. It's a first-person shooter type thing. You're fighting in the middle of a hurricane, using kind of sci-fi weaponry. There's rain, there's wind, there's garbage blowing all over the place. I've not seen, I don't know if how you categorize that in terms of technology, if that's particle effects or what, but there's just so much visually going on in this game that I'm just like, I don't think I've ever seen a game quite like this before. The action looks faster and more forward-pressing than I'm used to, like, say, the Doom type of gameplay, like id Software type gameplay, compared to Far Cry, which you can be a little bit more sneaky and slow and methodical. So it looks like it's more on the Doom forward-pressing side of gameplay, which is not really my thing, but it seemingly has abilities that you can trigger to slow down the action for a moment, or certain actions will bring you into a slow-mo mode. I'm not sure what's going on there and how much that represents actual gameplay, but there's also other tricks too, weapons and tech that you can use, like a grapple and melee sword that are mixed in with gunplay that make me wonder if I could still manage, if it'll maybe be somewhat somewhat like a BioShock type of experience, which would be, I think, first-person shooter gameplay that I can manage, provided they have, of course, the difficulty settings that I'm going to need. But I've seen so little given its announced 2021 release, and so I'm ready to see this thing come out and just be a mess. But I really want to see more. I would really love to get my hands on it and give Bright Memory Infinite a try. Next up, The Outer Worlds 2. This is maybe coming exclusively to Xbox. I don't remember them trumpeting that. Maybe because the first game was multi-platform, they'll continue to do that, but it's so early, who knows what they'll do. I mean, they haven't given a date or a year even for this game, but I loved The Outer Worlds. I've started a second playthrough, and I plan to do the DLC this time, which I didn't do the first time around. I just want more of this game. It's like well, I don't want to say Fallout, because it's not, the first game isn't open world, but it has a Fallout type of gameplay and interface, but without being an open world, being more of a KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, or, some of those earlier BioWare type games. So I basically just want more of the same that I got in Outer Worlds, but bigger this time, with Microsoft money thrown at it, as can certainly be the case now. It doesn't have to be Fallout 3 or Fallout 4 big, but somewhere between the size of the first game and a Fallout game, and a little bit more of an open world feel would be awesome. And again, I recommend you check out the trailer for it, just because it's funny on a meta level, as someone that likes video games and is used to being lied to a lot in trailers. I mean, they just embrace the corporate aspects of those kinds of tactics in trailers, and which is appropriate given the setting of the first game being kind of dominated by this corporation. So anyway, yeah, that's The Outer Worlds 2. No date or year. We'll see when we get it. Next up, Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake. And this is maybe coming to multiple consoles. This was announced as part of I believe it was the 25th or something anniversary of the Dragon Quest series. It looks like it's the exact same game as Dragon Quest III, but with a graphics overhaul to have that 2D, 3D blend that is, first, I think, pioneered by Octopath Traveler, and is now, this year, showing up in all kinds of games that are being previewed. Now, I've never actually played Dragon Quest III, and so this will be a fresh experience for me, and that's part of the reason I'm looking forward to it so much. I think it actually looks cooler and less bright and silly than Dragon Quest XI. Now, maybe that's because it's pixel art, and so my imagination fills in the gaps, differently than the creator, maybe has in their mind. I don't know exactly what the difference is, but it just feels less cartoony, feels less silly than the visual aesthetics of Dragon Quest XI. I am on board aesthetically for all that I'm seeing here. I like that fairly simple Dragon Quest turn-based RPG combat. They are aiming for a simultaneous worldwide release, which is kind of really a new thing for the Dragon Quest intellectual property, so that's exciting, but there's no date or window announced yet, so who knows how long this is going to take. There's a game similarly styled that isn't going to be releasing until 2023 that was also previewed in E3 this year, so it could be a long ways out still, but I'm hopeful that since it's Square Enix behind this, that maybe they're throwing money at it so that they can get this game out with a high bar of quality, but in a much shorter period of time. So I'm hopeful that it will come out maybe in the next 12 months. That would be awesome. And I want you guys to feel free to hold me accountable to really earnestly try and finish Dragon Quest XI before buying Dragon Quest III Remake. I'm just trying to get into the mode increasingly of finishing games and extracting the fun from them that I can genuinely get without forcing myself to have, an experience that I'm genuinely not liking. But there's plenty in the gameplay that I enjoy in Dragon Quest XI. It's just pushing through the aesthetics a little bit. I hear that it does get dark at some point through that game, and I don't think I've reached that part yet. But anyway, yeah, so really looking forward to getting my hands on Dragon Quest III HD 2D Remake, coming who knows when. Gestalt, Steam, and and Cinder is the next game on my list here, coming in 2021. So far only listed as coming to Steam, but given the type of game that it is, I think it's very likely that we'll see it on consoles, if not at launch with Steam, then maybe just months or a year after, something like that. This is a Metroidvania with heavy RPG elements. What I would kind of classify as a symphony-like is what it looks like. It has a steampunk setting with beautiful 2D pixel graphics that remind me of what they were doing with pixel graphics of the PS1 era, which I think actually stands the test of time so much better than what they were doing with 3D polygon-type graphics in the PS1 era. And so I really love that kind of visual aesthetic. The combat is more deliberate. You have to think about it a little bit more than just jumping and slashing like you would in a typical Metroidvania, but it's not so deliberate that it's Souls-like, and the levels and the world are not structured as a symphony-like with quite the same. It's maybe a little bit more horizontal in terms of the exploration than kind of vertical and going all over the place in a big castle-like map. But it has a big upgrade tree and the ability to grind for experience if you're having difficulty in the game. I played the demo of this last year and thought that I had posted it, but I actually never did, and going back and looking at it, I remembered why. It's because it didn't capture correctly. But I did play the demo last year and really enjoyed it. It really left me wanting to get my hands on it and play it some more, and seeing the preview material for Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder this year, and seeing more of the upgrade tree potential made me even more want to give this game a try. So yeah, it could easily be a surprise favorite for me when it comes out, hopefully, as it says, in 2021. That's Gestalt, Steam, and Cinder. Next up is Sacrifire. This one is a successfully backed Kickstarter project. Or very close to it. I can't remember actually what the case was with this one, but it's a team with a history of a successful kickstarting, so an experienced game developer. So I have no reason to think that it's going to fail and fall apart. It looks like it's plenty on its way. For backers, the planned release is December 2022, so late next year. And then it's also coming to PC and consoles, but I don't know if it's going to be coming at the same time to the main market as it will be for backers. But the description reads, a modern JRPG-inspired game with a unique battle system, rich story, fantastic visuals, and music by Motoi Sakuraba, who wrote music for the Tales series, Star Ocean series, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Golden Sun, and the Dark Souls series. Sacrifire is an upcoming RPG inspired by the 90s titles that began our love affair with gaming. Vagrant Story and Xenogears amongst them. So that caught my attention. I haven't played Vagrant Story, but I did really enjoy Xenogears. So it's got dynamic combat that involves targeting enemy weak points, targeting enemy limbs even, and using different attack types that enemies are weak to. You're constantly required, they say, to change up tactics according to the enemy that you're facing. It doesn't look like it's a heavy brain-burning kind of experience, but just like, you have to think and make intentional choices. You're not just hammering that attack button over and over again or hammering the same spell buttons over and over again, And if you really effectively utilize enemy weaknesses, you can end them in just like one turn. And so I think it's part of the enjoyment is really being economical in the choices you're making in combat in order to take your enemy out as quickly as possible. Combat is turn-based, but also looks quick and flashy to me in what I'm seeing. It's a visual blend of 2D art and 3D planes, again, that kind of Octopath Traveler visual aesthetic with modern lighting effects. Looks really great. It's reportedly has a focus on moral complexity, both embracing classic tropes and subverting expectations, and so I look forward to see how that plays out. You also travel between a physical world and a spiritual world in this game, which I made an entire audio drama trilogy that kind of hung on that premise and that gimmick or device or whatever, and so obviously that's something that I'm personally interested in. The main character is also named Ezekiel, which is a prophet from the Old Testament. He's a soldier in the Church of Sheol, which Sheol is the Hebrew word describing the place of the dead, or the grave, more broadly speaking. And there's other indications that they're drawing from Judeo-Christian Russian source material. So I'm very interested in kind of what kind of worldview things they're going to explore here, certainly all the more so as a Christian myself. And so very interested to see Sacrifire when it releases in December, hopefully, of 2022. Next up, Atomic Heart. This one has kind of been on my watch list for years. It was first, I think, showcased or had a little trailer at E3, I want to say back in 2018, maybe even. It's an alternate history, first-person shooter, seemingly in the Bioshock mode of exploring, did I say the name? Atomic Heart, if I didn't say it. Seemingly in the Bioshock mode of kind of exploring a strange environment to uncover its mysteries and fight these bizarre enemies, which I think are maybe... I don't think they're all going to be robots. Mostly robots, but also some weird, like, water creatures or something. I don't know what's going on. I mean, this is a really trippy trailer. And there's multiple trailers, so I would recommend checking them all out because they all have interesting, trippy things going on. It's an alternate history Soviet Russia where robotics are highly advanced. I think it might even take place in the 50s, but I'm not sure. Or in kind of like a ruin of a place that was built in the 50s. It's part of these robots are part of a shared hive mind, which seemingly is inspired by a project in the lore of this game intended to link humans in a hive mind, removing all sense of privacy and personal identity. So it sounds like it's a critical commentary on socialism, and I believe this is coming from Russian developers, or maybe Russian-adjacent developers of some kind. I think, you know, if you're listening to this on the podcast, you just need to watch the gameplay. It's creepy. It's, you know, weird-looking robots and otherworldly enemies and environments with a bit of a 50s sci-fi vibe, but looking run down. Lots of abilities and weapons and ways to approach combat that feel like Bioshock to me when I read the description or watch the footage. The big question for me is, will it have the difficulty options of Bioshock that I will need? I am not good at action games. Anything that requires quick response time, quick thinking. I'm much more of a deliberate thinker. I like to take my time and explore, and I just don't have the quick reaction time that is needed for action games. So hopefully they've thought of that, because this seems like it's geared to appeal to players who like exploring, who like good stories in their games, rather than just being geared toward players who want a challenge. So, but ultimately, you know, we'll see if they've thought of that or not. Currently, it has a 2021 release scheduled for PC and consoles, but no further specifics. But I, for years, have been interested in this game, and will continue in great anticipation to look for an opportunity to get my hands on Atomic Heart. All right, just a few left here. Next up, Source of Madness. Now, this has no release date, and it looks like it's coming to Steam only so far, but it looks like a symphony-like a game very much in the vein of Symphony of the Night. There are elements that make me think, oh, maybe it won't be for me. I'm not sure, because it look, you know, well, I'll read the description here. Source of Madness is a side-scrolling dark action roguelite. I mean, that term is about as useless as Metroidvania, because what does that developer mean when they say roguelite? What elements are they pulling from that genre? And so it could be the elements that I hate, that are difficult, that allow a lot of dying and starting over from the very beginning, which I hate in games, you know? I mean, freaking Super Mario Bros. 1 was a roguelite in that sense. But anyway, it's a Source of Madness is a side-scrolling dark action roguelite set in the Loam Lands, a twisted Lovecraftian inspired world powered by procedural generation and AI machine learning. I don't know what that is being applied to, but if you listen more, you'll see what it's applied to, and it's a key thing that interests me. Take on the role of a new acolyte as they embark on a nightmarish odyssey, uncover the cosmic secrets of the Loam Lands and the Tower of Madness, the moon's mysterious citadel. The horrific monsters you face are never the same, concocted with procedural generation and animated using a neural network AI. That's one of the things that interests me the most. I'm not really as interested in procedural level generation as I am seeing procedural generation applied to other things like this. And the idea that the monsters would be procedurally generated, you know, part of me is like, oh, I don't know, knowing that they're procedurally generated, am I going to start seeing the puppeteer strings? Am I going to start noticing the things that, you know, are true of these monsters? Just, are they going to start feeling procedurally generated? You know, will I be tuned into that? I don't know. I think there's a chance that I will be less tuned into that because of the Lovecraftian inspiration. These monsters in the brief trailer that we have look really bizarre and weird, but yet still seem to be of different behavior types, and so I think that strange, bizarre otherworldliness, and also they use some dark lighting at times, so you can't really see the monsters very clearly. I think the combination of those things with the procedural generation of the monsters could make it play to the strengths of procedural generation here really well. It's just kind of like this weird fear of the unknown and the unknowable. You know, it's so yeah, it's looks very cool. They go on to say explosive close combat magic, labyrinthine environmental exploration, powerful loot management, and a skill tree filled with abilities, classes, and spells. The fact that they play up the skill tree makes me say, okay, so it's probably not a roguelite in the sense of dying and starting over from scratch without at least keeping your upgrades, you know. And so I can deal with that. If you allow me to keep the upgrades I've had up to that point, then I think that's going to be something that I can enjoy. They go on to say, rendered in a beautiful AI-assisted art style, the fascinating world of the Lone Lands reveals a deep arcane lore as players uncover its many secrets. And so again, no release date for this one. Seems to be coming to Steam only so far, but these types of games, I think, seem to be more likely to make their way to console, at least eventually, if not pretty soon or at the same time as they come to PC. So anyway, that's Source of Madness. Definitely interested in that. My penultimate choice is Eiyuden Chronicle. This one's coming in 2023 to PC and consoles. The description on their site reads, studio lead Yoshitaka Murayama, who is responsible for Suikoden 1 and 2, which I think is very important to note, and director Osama Komuta, are joining forces once again to bring us an unforgettable journey through the world of Alran. In Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, take your turn-based strategy game experience to the next level with a finely crafted 6-character battle system. Utilizing meticulously created 2D sprites and beautiful 3D backgrounds, Rabbit and Bear Studios delivers a riveting story and gameplay unlike any JRPG that has come before. Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes is designed to bring players a modern take on a classic JRPG experience. Get ready to lead 100+ playable characters through a war-torn world only you can save. So, both the mind behind it, in the, you know, the developer of Suikoden 1 and 2, and the fact that you're recruiting up to 100+ playable characters, and just the combat itself in the trailer looks a lot like Suikoden, and but with that 2D, 3D blend of Octopath Traveler, I'm just mesmerized by the visuals. Of all the games that are employing that 2D, 3D blend, this is the one that really has me most mesmerized looking at it. And I've also recently experienced a revival in my love for classic JRPG turn-based gameplay, and so I just can't wait to give Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes a try. I have to wait a while. It's coming in 2023, but there's at least a game set in this world from the same developers, Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, that's coming in 2022. It's described as an action RPG set in the same world as Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, featuring town-building mechanics, fast-paced combat, and important backstory for several of the latter game's cast of characters. So I'm just interested in this property at this point, Eiyuden Chronicle. And so Eiyuden Chronicle Rising, that is not what I'm most looking forward to, but I'll definitely be interested enough to try and check it out. And that one's coming in 2022. But Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes coming in 2023 to PC and consoles. And the number one game that I'm most looking forward to getting my hands on should be no surprise. It is the only AAA game on this list, aside from maybe Outer Worlds 2. We'll see what treatment that game actually gets. But it's, of course, Starfield, if you know me and my interests at all, which is coming November 2022. Really wished it was coming November of 21, but no, we got to wait about a year and a half to get this one. It feels weird to kind of put it on this list and to have it as, you know, my most anticipated game that I want to get my hands on. But even though it's far out and we've not seen any gameplay, Todd Howard has confirmed during E3 that it's a lot like, he says, Skyrim in space. That's all I need to know. That is all I need to know. We've seen so little. There's really not much more I can say about this game. I mean, I could pick apart the trailer, but I'm not really interested in that. But it's the history of this studio with both Elder Scrolls and Fallout single-player games that have me confident that this is going to be a new favorite. So really, really looking forward, of course, to Starfield coming in November 2022. All right, those are all of the games that I picked. There was more I could have put on this list. I decided to limit it to 10. Lots of cool stuff, especially in the indie space for me to check out this year. And so I'm looking forward to many more games than the ones I mentioned here coming and trying to get my hands on them and trying them out some more. I would be curious to hear what your most anticipated games are to at least get your hands on and try based on what you've seen of E3 coverage this year. You can leave those in the comments below, but that's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.